Blog Talk Radio.
Are you ready to take a bite out of the competition? Are you looking for ideas to make your business better? Welcome to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. At the core of every successful business, you'll find people making a difference. And with each episode of the Core Business Show, we talk with those people, examine those ideas, and explore the strategies that make them special. Now, the host of the Core Business Show, Tim Jacquet.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Core Business Show. I'm Tim Jacquet, your host. Today, I have the pleasure of talking about a book called Haunted Florida, A Guide to the Departed Souls. And our special guest today is Kimberly Rebman. She's an author of this particular book. She's in her volume 1. If you'd like to join the conversation, please call us at 347-324-3460 or pose your question in the chat room or email us at info@thecorebusinessshow. Kimberly, welcome to the program.
Well, thank you for having me. How you doing?
Great. I guess to begin with, kind of tell us about yourself. Our audience love personal stories about our guests, so if you might just kind of segue and tell us how you got started.
Okay, well, I'm originally from Hollywood, Florida, and I've been doing this now for 20 years. This marks my 20th year this year. People often ask me how I got started and when I really developed a passion for the paranormal. And I have to kind of say I was born with the paragene, meaning that, it was sort of an innate thing. I was always interested, I think, ever since I was like a toddler. But around, I guess, the age of 4 or 5 was when I really, really started developing a fascination with it. My mom often would tell me stories about people in the family that had experiences, and, she was always very open about stuff like that with me. And it never scared me. It was just so intriguing and fascinating. And I was one of those weird little kids, I guess, that would go to the library and look for books on ghosts and Bigfoot and stuff like that. So I've been doing it for a really long time. And then when I was about high school age, like a teenager, and I had my very first ghostly encounter. I saw a full-bodied apparition, and ever since then, I've been really fascinated. I've been interviewing people, researching, and traveling the state of Florida and even beyond, looking for ghosts and trying to understand the paranormal field.
Tell us about, a lot of people don't understand paranormal. Kind of walk us through that particular journey. What is it? And are people born with a certain acute sense of seeing things that we don't see as we walk through this universe every single day?
I do think that we all have it. Some people say, you're psychic. I don't have absolutely any psychic ability whatsoever. But I do think we all have some level of what I would call sixth sense, some degree of intuition, whether you're an empath and you just pick up on energies or vibrations or feelings of others or things around you, or whether you can really communicate with spirits or be able to kind of foresee things happening in the future. We all have some level or some degree, and some of us are a little bit more sensitive and are able to hone in on those skills and are able to develop those skills a little bit more than other people can. But we do all have that kind of ability within us. And the paranormal really is just anything that, to me, is unknown or unexplainable. It encompasses so many different things, everything from ghost lore to cryptozoology, such as Bigfoot and the Jersey Devil, things of that nature. Anything that we just cannot understand that's beyond our realm of being normal or typical. So, I've always been intrigued by ghosts, but I've also, been interested in other things too, sea monsters and, the lizard man, there's just so much more out there and we just don't understand it all. UFOs, that's a big one. So, anything that we just cannot necessarily always see or feel or touch or whatever with our 5 senses is paranormal. It's beyond the normal realm.
Well, some people have the particular sense of seeing things. I mean, with a UFO, you might not ever encounter that. But this one, if you go into that environment or space, there's places that are haunted more so than others. There are some people that's born with this sixth sense
right,
that they can see things then we're just grateful not to see.
Right.
Some things it's like you don't want to see the danger around you, so why invite that in? And I remember having a conversation with another person, Jason Dowell, and we were talking about the Ouija boards and things like that.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you walk into that universe, or we have choices we can avoid, some people can't avoid them. It's just turned on, or it never turns off. Some kids see things and we don't believe that is make believe. We thought it is imagination. They might be seeing that, and slowly as they get into mainstream, then those things are taught to turn off.
Right. And I think for some people, it's being able to have these kinds of sensitivities and to be able to see things. I think it's sometimes it's a curse, to them. I've talked to people who have these abilities that are very, very fine-tuned, and, they're able to communicate with the spirit world. They're able to see things and experience things that maybe many typical people are not able to do. And, to some people, they might say, wow, that's such a gift to be able to communicate with the other side and to see these things. But, to them, it's often a curse because, it is a very frightening thing. And sometimes it's actually an annoying thing, to constantly be bombarded by these spirits who are constantly asking you questions and trying to get messages. It's if you've seen the Sixth Sense, you would be able to, kind of relate to that with, these people are just, constantly being bombarded and talked to by the other world, the other side. So it can be kind of a double-edged sword, I think, for some people. But, it is an amazing thing if you do have that kind of gift. I just can't even imagine, for me, I'm more of an empath, so I pick up on energies and vibrations, and I do have prophetic dreams, and I'm able to sometimes see things through my dreams that do later on happen. But aside from that, there's not much else, psychic to me. So, I'm kind of thankful for that, I guess. So, but everyone, like I said, everyone has some level of psychic ability. I do believe that.
Okay. So you just mentioned something about dreams, and within your dreams that you actually see in the future. When you have those particular instances regarding your dreams, they come to fruition in the future?
A lot of times they do. It's kind of strange. I will have a dream. This is a good example. I once had a dream about my son, and in the dream, I could see things that they didn't necessarily make sense to me the very next morning when I woke up, but they were things regarding him being taken away from me and being brought into this strange room. And I was looking through these double doors and, trying to figure out what was going on. Why was he being taken from me? He was put on this table and people were kind of hovering around him and he was crying and they were trying to help him and I was in tears. And of course, the next morning I was very unsettled and very disturbed by the dream, but it didn't make much sense to me at the time. And then a couple hours later, I took him to the beach, and he had a very bad accident at the beach. It was sort of a freak accident, and he fell into a bench that was on the beach, and he actually cracked his head open. And we had to go to the hospital, and he was taken from my arms, and he was brought to this table where these people were obviously standing over him, doctors, nurses. He was screaming. I was in tears. And I realized as I was looking at him on this table, I was actually looking at him through these double doors, these little windows on these double doors that were in the examination room. And it was just all of a sudden I stepped back and I thought, oh my goodness, that's really kind of freaky. So, but it happens a lot to me where I do see things like that and they don't always make sense to me. And then later on, it's kind of like a puzzle. It all sort of fits together. So, and occasionally I'll actually have people who have passed away. They will come to me in my dreams. I will talk to people like my grandparents, and people in my family will come to me and tell me that they're okay and that everything's going to be all right. And so, it can be very scary. It can be very comforting. But yes, dreams are very powerful.
Okay. Let's take a break real quick. Let's come back and talk about your book more in depth of Haunted Florida. We'll be back in a moment. You're listening to The Core Business Show. I'm Tim JK, your host.
You're listening to The Core Business Show, sponsored by Apple Capital Group. Apple Capital Group in Jacksonville, Florida, is a commercial lender that specializes in asset-based loans, equipment leasing and financing, invoice financing, commercial real estate loans, and asset-based financing in the U.S. and Canada. Apple Capital Group is a direct lender that lends on their private equity investment portfolio. 90% of most loans are decided within 2 hours, and vendor funding within 24 hours after documents are completed, with a one-page application. No slow no's, just a quick decision and a fast yes. To get more information about lending from Apple Capital Group, call 866-611-7457. That's 866-611-7457 to speak with one of our loan specialists. Or visit us right now at applecapitalgroup.com. Welcome back to the core. Once again, here's Tim Jacquet.
Okay, our topic for this hour is Haunted Florida Guide to the Departed Soul with Kimberly Rebman. Kimberly, when it comes to this particular book, what brought you about writing this particular book about Haunted Florida?
All these, I've been going to all these these different haunted destinations in the state of Florida. Like I said, I was doing it for a number of years. And when I first got started doing it, I really didn't have very much to bring on my investigations. You see some of these teams nowadays and they have vans full of all this fancy equipment. But back when I got started, it was basically a pen and paper and a basic camera. And that was really all I took with me. And when I would go to these different places, I would write down my experiences. I would write down the history of the place, whatever the ghost lore was. And of course, I would write down, if I talked to someone, interviewed somebody. And when I would go back later on and I would review my notes, I was, really kind of taken by all the different places that I went to. And it sort of would bring me back to that particular moment in time. And I thought, well, this is kind of fun, rereading all these different experiences. And then I would have people that would approach me and they would want to read about, some of the places I went. And I thought, well, this is kind of fun. I'm going to maybe make this into a book of sorts. And it was just kind of like a real casual, laid-back sort of idea I had for a while. But then over time, I would have so many people talk to me about Florida being a haunted state and saying, is it really that haunted? There's so many other states out there, all these New England states and, of course, places like New Orleans and they just don't always think in terms of Florida being a particularly haunted state or having much history. And so the more I would talk to people about it and the more they would ask me, where would you recommend going on a ghost hunt? And, I started thinking, well, I'm going to put together all my writings and I'm going to make it into a book and I'm just going to do it. And so that's kind of where the whole book idea started. And I would just go and take, every little place I went to and I would talk about the history of the place, the ghost lore, and of course my own personal experiences at each and every one of these locations. And basically I wrote from everything from the panhandle of Florida all the way down to Key West. But
Wow.
I still have tons more to write about. I mean, I could do book after book after book. There's just so many places in Florida that are haunted.
So what is it like in running into these particular entities?
It can be kind of scary. I'm not going to lie. I have been in situations before where, it is pretty terrifying. And, I think it's just that fear of the unknown. You don't see it necessarily. You might just hear something or you might just be able to, sense that something is around you. And just the not knowing, the not necessarily seeing this particular entity can be a very, very scary thing. But, it's a mystery, but it's also a thrill in a lot of ways. And that's, why we call it ghost hunting. It's kind of that thrill, that adrenaline rush of being able to go to these different places and see if you can uncover some of these mysteries and run into something. You just never know.
So what is that? Kind of take us mentally. What is it like into running into something that is paranormal? Did you fear that it would hurt you?
I try to never get myself into a situation where I know it's going to be dangerous. You can never obviously predict, what you're dealing with, but, there are situations that, I have done a lot of private investigations for clients, who are haunted in their homes. And And a lot of times I'll have people that approach me and say, I know I'm dealing with a demon. I know I'm dealing with something that's very evil and dark. But I would have to say probably 99% of the time that I hear that, it's not the case at all. I think people just, are very, very frightened and they're scared and they see things that are, on television and they immediately assume that they're dealing with the same kind of thing. But typically that's not the case. However, there are a couple of times, there are those very, very rare times where there are things that are, very dark and very, not necessarily things that you want to be dealing with. And so I don't like to get myself involved with situations like that. I just don't feel comfortable. And I feel like if you're not comfortable and you're feeling the least bit vulnerable, to just not even deal with a situation like that to begin with, or to remove yourself from that kind of situation. So it can be very scary. I always protect myself. I always make sure that, my group and I, we do whatever we can to protect ourselves, wearing, if it's a talisman or some kind of medallion, a protective medallion, or if it's the cross or Bible or prayer, holy water, whatever it is that works for you, do it. But yes, it can be a little scary at times. Absolutely.
Okay. And why there's more haunted locations in Florida? Is there a particular reason why? Because I can expect, you're talking about which country, Boston, Connecticut, New Hampshire, all this part of the United States. But Florida is kind of only been around for the last 100 years or so. Why we have this issue there?
Right. And that's why, once again, one of the reasons that I like to be able to educate with my book is, we do hear that a lot. Florida is a newer state. And, a lot of people, have a misconception, because Florida is a beachy kind of place and, we have theme parks and all that kind of stuff. But, there's a whole lot more. You have to think about all the wars. Just look at St. Augustine alone. I've been to St. Augustine where I've talked to historians and they have said to me, there's not a particular place here in St. Augustine that is very haunted. It's all of St. Augustine. You could be walking along. There's a beautiful fort, the Castillo, in St. Augustine. And a lot of people think it's just that fort that's haunted. But you could be walking all around and literally walking on skeletons and bones of people who have died and just, literally they just got buried where they fell. You have a lot of war, piracy. Pirates are very well known in the Tampa Bay area and even beyond that. So a lot of sea-related kinds of deaths. You have yellow fever. It was a huge epidemic. Just, go to St. Augustine and look around some of the old graves. You'll see a lot of the victims in those graves died from.
And St. Augustine is outside of Jacksonville, Florida?
I'm sorry?
St. Augustine is the one that's outside of Jacksonville, Florida?
Correct. Yes, it's very close to Jacksonville. Yeah.
Okay, great. So regarding your investigation, someone just asked me a question, threw me off track. So in the course of your entire investigation, what do you like to leave us with your book?
Well, as far as my book, it's like I said, it's an educational kind of guide. It's fun, just enjoy. I know some people like to read it before they go to sleep and then they get scared, but it's just a fun kind of book. It's something where if you're looking for a place to ghost hunt, it's a great tool to use because I sort of break it down from city to city to city. And there's just a lot of different places that you can go and something for everybody, I guess. And it's great for the beginning ghost hunter. It's great for somebody who is unfamiliar with the state of Florida. So just enjoy it and have fun with it.
Wow. And where can we find your book?
You can find it. It's available at many, many online book retail outlets, Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, whatever retail book outlet that you use online, it's there.
Perfect. Well, do you have a website as well?
I sure do. You can find me at my ghost hunting website, which is www.floridaghosthunters.org.
Perfect. Well, Kimberly, thank you for joining the program. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, and have fun with the baby.
Oh, I will. Thank you.
Okay, talk to you later. Take care.
Right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Again, you can download this episode on iTunes and Blog Talk Radio. Everybody, thank you for listening. I'm Tim J.K., your host. Some of this information will be on will be on the Core Business Show website. And also, you can get it from those two entities yourself. Thank you for listening. I'm Tim J.K., your host. Everybody have a great day.
Thank you for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim J.K. For a free quote on equipment leasing and financing, visit our website, applecapitalgroup.com. That's applecapitalgroup.com. And fill out the information to receive your free quote. We hope you'll join us for our next episode. And remember, you can always get to the core via iTunes. You'll find all our previous episodes there. Thanks again for listening to the Core Business Show with Tim Jacquet.